Jesus Christ. This is just from my office. All right, here we have two wet vacuum products from Shark. You have the OG Shark Hydrovac. This is the cordless version. They do have a corded version as well. And then we now have the new-ish steam mop from Shark. Now, Shark products are generally pretty good. They're also pretty cheap. The biggest complaints and concerns we hear from people are, of course, longevity. So basically, you know, these things are kind of cheaply built, cheaply priced, cheaply built, and they probably don't last all that long. And funny enough, I actually do have some anecdotal evidence of that with the Shark Hydrovac, but despite all that, I quite like the product. In general, wet vacuums have always been a bit of a sore subject for me because generally speaking, they cause more work than they do help. For example, all of the time that it takes to clean and maintain these things, you could have just taken a wet paper towel and like wiped up the mess manually. But the Shark Hydrovac was one of the first ones that I actually liked for the most part. The brush roll is pretty antimicrobial. It's the only one that didn't have an odor to it. Now that has since changed with the Narwhal and the Mach V1 Ultra. But this was the first one that had basically no odor problems with the brush roll. I also thought that it had one of the easier to empty bins as well. So basically the dirty water bin comes out, you'd basically dump it out. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff that you had to do in order to get like leaves and crap out of it. Whereas, for example, the Tentacos were a pain in the butt. The Narwhal is a pain in the butt. The Mach V1 Ultra was okay. But in general, again, this product category always kind of irked me because like, vacuuming takes care of 99% of the stuff that you need to do, and anything like wet and messy on the floor, you just take a sponge. But that product category has since developed over time. It has gotten a lot better, and of course new products are coming out that make this concept a little bit easier, and so in comes the steam pickup. Now I was pretty excited about the concept of this thing because one, you didn't have a dirty water tank you had to maintain, although you do have two dirty trays, and I'll get into that later. But you also don't have to put any chemicals in these things. And that's the thing with these vac mops is that in some capacity they all have like a detergent that you need to add to them. In the case of like some of the Tentacos and in this one you put it in the actual water tank itself. And then you have like the Mach V1 Ultra, the Narwhals, those you have like a little separate area where you put in the detergent and it would sort of intelligently add it to the water as necessary. But anytime I don't have to use a chemical, and for that matter, anytime I don't have to put an additive in any capacity, I'm pretty excited. And thus comes the steam pickup mop. Now Shark claims that this thing is both a vacuum as well as a steam mop. And if you take this thing apart, you will notice that the brush roll in it is in fact kind of scratchy. It's the first of these products that I have found that has a sort of scrubby brush roll. And I was kind of excited about that. And it does in fact kind of work. There are some sticky things on this studio floor that this thing has pulled up that the other vac mops have not been able to do. I don't know why they don't put a little scratchy floor scrubber on all of them, but they don't. Here we have a sticky black spot on my studio floor here. Now that black spot has been there since for like 3 years. Okay, it's some sticky gum that came off a Hewlett-Packard computer. Now Shark says that you should let it sort of like sit on the spot for like 15 seconds to really deep scrub, so we're gonna go ahead and try that. But in any event, we got the thing rolling here. Steam's starting to come out. You can hear it kind of kicking in. Maybe even see it. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and just slide that on over there. Now bear in mind, no Narwhal, no Tinaco, no Mach V Ultra has been able to take that stain up. Oh wow. We actually have some amount of progress. It has kind of getting there. All right, now while you might be saying to yourself, Chris, it didn't take up the stain entirely, I cannot highlight for you how impressive that is. I have, on that black spot, have tested every single vac mop that we've had. I've even also tried conventional steam mops, and even just taken some Windex or whatever, and some cleaner, green, super green, whatever the green crap is called, and paper towels. Nothing has taken that spot up. That did it, and admittedly it took, you know, about a minute for it to make some like progress, but it did in fact make progress. So yeah, for what it's worth, when they say that it has scrubbing power, I can tell you for sure that any other product in this category lacks that same scrubbing power. Maybe it's not perfect, but that's pretty good. And then again, the only thing you have to add to this thing is water. It creates steam and it's good to go. And I will give it credit here too, is that the steam that it produces comes out pretty fast. You don't have to wait for 3 minutes while it sort of charges itself up. It comes out pretty quickly. You do have a low, medium, and high mode. You select that. It claims that the high mode is really only meant for like really stubborn, deep scrubbing necessities. But I just, you know, what's the point of buying a Ferrari if you can't put the floor to the pedal to the metal as any time you want? So anyway, but it does claim that you should use it pretty much on light or normal mode in most given circumstances. We're gonna, of course, test all that. Some of the other things that we want to find out too is if the edge cleaning on this thing is any good, what it's like to own, maintenance, that kind of deal, and basically just find out if you should buy one yourself. All right, now let's test its edge cleaning capabilities. Now there's a piece of fuzz on near my baseboard. A little bit of fuzz there too. And I'm gonna try head on with that one, and then I'm gonna try the right side with that one. So on we go. We are going to go head on. I got it. A little bit of crap left behind, I guess, but nevertheless, I got it, so that's good. All right, so now let's try the side. It's getting some additional crap off of the baseboards there. As you can tell, this office is in desperate need for a detailing. But in any event, yes, the side capabilities on it are pretty good. Now it's worth noting, if you flip the thing over, that there is a border here. So like the left side has a bit of a thicker border than the right side does in terms of where the brush roll is. So basically scrubbing power is going to be limited by about a ½ inch here. However, its vacuuming capabilities seem to be okay. You know, bear that in mind. If you got a sticky mess on like the side of your baseboard, even if you're going like head on with it, I don't think it's gonna probably do too well to pick that up. All right, now one thing I wanna test is its mopping capabilities. Now this thing isn't really billed as a mop in the conventional sense of the typical vac mop category. In fact, what they call this thing is basically a steam sanitizer, a scrubber, and a debris picker upper. But what I wanna find out if this thing can be seconded as a mop, because ultimately that's a thing that a lot of like average households kind of suffer from. Who the f likes to mop? Anyway, I have put a considerable amount of dirt on the floor, and what we want to find out is basically if this thing is just going to spread the mud around on the floor, or if it's actually going to like pick it up. Because dirt is just one of those things. A lot of like the robot vacuums, for example, their mopping feature, all it really does is just sort of spreads dirty water all over your floors. So if this thing just turns this into mud and just sort of spreads it around, well then you know that this thing is not really good for mopping. Anyway, that is just some dirt I found from outside. So we're gonna take one pass over it. And actually, geez. So it's creating a little bit of mud, which is to be expected. So we're just gonna go over it a few times here. All right, ultimately that was kind of impressive. It picked up the dirt on very few passes and did not just spread muddy water around. Now I'm gonna go ahead and dump out what is now inevitably mud and see how well it picks up like dirty water off the floor. Basically, in other words, if it's actually trapping that dirty mud water or dirt on the floor, or if it's gonna be spreading that around. All right, here we have disgusting, dirty mud water. All right, and we're going to see how well it picks that up. All right, so even though this thing is not a vac mop in the conventional sense, it does still actually pick up like dirty water, and I don't think that it is just spreading dirt around on your floors. Like, it doesn't, I don't think it really has much for vacuum capabilities. What it really does is just sort of sweeps it into its little bins. But all in all, it does a fairly good job at picking stuff up and is not just leaving dirty residue behind. So now real quick, after doing a little bit of editing and having the mop just sort of sit there, it did basically leave like a little streak of dirt where the roller was. So, you know, it's not quite self-cleaning itself as it goes, or at least not that well. But, you know, I mean, if you're going to be, you know, storing it, you're going to be storing it on a little base there. So I guess, you know, I don't know. All right, so here's something worth noting. There is a little bit of an issue with containment. So as I was kind of moving it around, muddy, dirty water was coming out of it again because the brush roll isn't like self-cleaning itself very well. Now, I did not clean out the container after I posted that last like dirt edit. So, you know, I guess basically that's the stuff that's kind of like falling out. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and just clean out those containers to see if that sort of helps alleviate that at all. But it's still worth noting that if you are not cleaning, or probably if you are not cleaning after do a heavy mess, it might leak out of it. And last thing I want to go over before the final thoughts are cleaning and maintenance on this thing. So using it is pretty simple. You just pop a little water reservoir off the front of it, fill it up with water, you're good to go. As for cleaning it afterwards, you basically pop the little lid on the brush roll housing off the top, then out comes a little interior tray. And from there, you can take both units, basically the top housing as well as the interior tray, wash and rinse those both off. There's two little like dirty water reservoirs on the interior tray that can open up and then dump those out. Rinse, pop them back in, good to go. It is far less maintenance than a conventional vac mop system. And in that regard, I really find this product to be a pretty big winner. This thing is by no means perfect, but in general, maintenance, odors, all of the kind of nastiness that comes along with the vac mops is going to be far more improved on this thing. For example, with actually every vac mop I've ever tested, when you go to clean the unit and you try to clean out the brush roll housing, generally speaking, you can kind of pop the top off and sort of rinse that off as well as like the number of other parts that you have to clean on a vac mop. But you tend to not take the brush roll out and then clean off the interior portion of the brush roll housing because it's not intuitive and most people just don't think about it. But in fact, on every single one I have ever tested, a lot of gunk, mud, and gross garbage just gets caked in on the interior of the brush roll housing. And you're mopping your floors with that caked on garbage. Whereas in this Shark steam pickup thing, you are forced to take off both trays because the interior tray has to come out because it's got all the debris in it. And thus you are cleaning that part out by necessity. And then still not having to then worry about a dirty water tank that you have to then spill the dirty water out, clean, etc. It is far less maintenance. And in that regard, I really think that this thing is pretty clever and successful. All right, is the steam pickup mop from Shark a perfect product? And the answer is no, but for $200 to $300, it's pretty close. My concerns with it are longevity, in terms of just its reliability and how long it'll last. You know, that Hydrovac that we have from Shark had a couple problems, and we had to get, I think, either 1 or 2 replacements. And then even the replacement had an issue with like the dirty water sensor. There's a way that you can short it out and then it's like moot, but still, longevity wasn't great on it. Shark's warranties are pretty good. When you call them up, you give them a serial number, tell them it's not working. Generally speaking, they're pretty quick to have you ship it back. They ship a new one to you. Not too bad. Customer service is pretty good. But aside from that, this is a very innovative product, regardless of its longevity. There aren't too many other products like it on the market, and this thing you're not gonna be able to use it on carpets, okay, but you will be able to use this thing on, you know, tile, laminate, hardwood floors, and I mean, it's gonna do a pretty good job of cleaning up, you know, crap and making the floors just feel and look clean. It does require, not everything requires like a lot of passes. I do think that cleaning with it might be a little bit slow, if for any reason other than the mop head itself is kind of thin. Now that's of course gonna allow you to get into sort of little small crevices and nooks and crannies in your house, which is nice. I do think this is infinitely better than a standard steam mop. So you know all the steam mops that you buy that have like the little like pad at the bottom that you have to like change out because it gets nasty and dirty. This thing is just infinitely better than that. And because that it also doesn't pick up debris. I mean, this thing does a pretty good job at picking crap up off the ground. Maybe not as good as like a vacuum, but it still does a pretty solid job. And it doesn't just spread around dirty water either. I mean, I gotta say, I do quite like this product. And while it may not be for everybody, I think that if you do have a lot of like tile or hardwood floor in your house and you want something chemical-free, quick and easy to sanitize, it's gonna do a pretty solid job. Comparing this to the Narwhal, because we have my daily driver at the house is a Narwhal S20. We're about to also now test the S30 Pro. I think I would still stick with a conventional vac mop. I might try an egg test on this. Forget it, there's no time like the present. Let's do the egg test. Oh my God! Oh, mate! This isn't a fever sing, Greg! All right, so the real question is, did it pick up the egg or did it just smear egg white like all over the floor? And the answer is a little bit of both. Well, first off, it sucked up the egg and the shell like absolutely no problem. But that is definitely a little tacky. I mean, that's egg white on there. I'm gonna go ahead and empty the brush bin, clean the brush in the sink as is suggested by Shark, and then we're gonna try this again. All right, important takeaway here. After cleaning out all the components and then trying again, it did do a much better job about picking up the residual egg white. With that said, that is a clear demonstration that this thing is not that great as at self-cleaning its own brush, but then B, as a conventional mop for big messes. So if you're somebody that is often cleaning up broken eggs, then you will probably want to stick with a conventional vac mop. With that said, in real life tests, I suppose most people can probably just take like a rag, pick up the egg shell and the egg as much as possible, and then go over it with this, with the steam pickup, and then I think it would probably fare pretty well that way. But with that said though, it does showcase this thing as a product category that it's not meant for like big immediate spills. This is meant for like sort of a everyday maintenance / polishing cleaner type thing, if you get the drift. But I do recommend this product. It is pretty good, and I actually think for the price it's even better. It's not cheap, but it is cheap so far as that product category is concerned. It does a better job at most of those products, and ultimately I think if you buy it, you would probably be a fairly happy camper. So yeah, there you have it. The Shark Steam Pickup. We do, in fact, recommend you buy it. Quick interjection, by the way, the more I use this thing, the more I like it. It just, it has done just such a great job in our tests. But I want to talk about, one, the cord. A lot of people don't like stuff with a cord anymore. I don't know what you're gonna do about that. They don't have a cordless version of it yet, but it produces a very powerful bit of steam, and I'm guessing that's probably thanks to the cord. You know, you don't have a battery that you have to rely on in order for it to produce like a lot of heat and stuff like that. For whatever it's worth though, the cord is ridiculously long. So I mean, like, you're not gonna have a problem getting to like most places in your house. And again, since the steam starts up so fast, you plug it in and in about 15 seconds, it's ready to rock and roll. So it's kind of like whatever. I don't think the cord is that big of a deal. And then the other thing is, who's this for, who's it not for? It is not for people with a big house. It is not for people with carpet. So for example, you had like the Mach V1 Ultra, which did kind of have like a suction carpet mode. A lot of the vac mops do these days. They don't really vacuum that good anyway, so it's kind of whatever. But if you have a lot of carpet, including throw rugs and stuff like that, this thing's probably not gonna be for you. Also, because it does have the small brush head and because it is relying on steam in order to disinfect, it is gonna need sort of like slower, more controlled passes. As a result, I would say it's not for people with big living spaces, big houses, big offices, whatever, because you're just gonna be taking a lot of time to do the work. So other than that though, I've gotta be honest, I have started kind of enjoying this more than a conventional vac mop. So I haven't quite really put the cons together on it yet in terms of comparing it to a standard vac mop, but ultimately I think this is gonna be the daily driver for this studio. I mean, Lord knows it needs it. And I'm even kind of considering this one for like the first floor of my house to replace a Narwhal S20, which is like 3 times the price. So please help support this channel. If you are looking to buy this product, we would appreciate it if you use the affiliate links in the description below. It does help us continue to make more of these videos. And as a quick side note, these videos are unsponsored and unpaid for. So that means every product that we review on this channel, we pay for with our own money. That allows us to give you a no BS, straight, true review of the product without just trying to sell you some crap you don't need. So anyway, that's the Steam Pickup. Thank you so much for watching. We hope this video was helpful, and we'll be back with another video really soon. It smells like a Waffle House in here now.